Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach and today we're doing another NFT video. I haven't done one of these in a while now. Wanted to have a listen to what Gary had to say. About 98% of the world haven't heard about NFTs yet. Speaking with Gianni Cettino, so I've got the name wrong, co-founder of Hot Streak Fantasy Sports. Want to have a listen to what they're talking about from the NFT point of view because honestly it's been so long. Let's jump straight into it.
And how are you? If you've been paying attention to me in any shape or form over the last 9 months, you know how much I am deep into NFT land. One of the things that has really caught my attention over the last 4 to 5 weeks is the thought of, wait a minute, you know, there's 50 to 100 to 200 of these great projects coming out a day now, which is causing a supply and demand issue. And one of my great fears is that people are day trading and really kind of using NFTs as an investment tool, which is great. And I love that stuff. And I'm a businessman, but I do worry about oversupply versus demand, even though I think demand is exploding by the day and people are getting in buying their Ethereum and other currencies to buy some of these NFTs. I am concerned by the sheer speed of the amount of projects that are out there. And so I've been doing a lot more archaeology work, as my brother AJ calls it. I've been looking back to the olden days of NFTs, which takes me way back to the year 2017 and 2018 when some of these projects started hitting the scene. And one particular project really caught my attention, and I started doing some real homework as I've gotten more and more into the NFT land. Whether it was Chubbies or Fame Lady Squad, I realized, you know, I need to know a little bit more homework about the human behind this project, because sometimes the art is stolen, sometimes people claim to be who they're not, and you know, unfortunately, and you know, unfortunately, when you get a platform, it's required a little bit more homework before you yap. Even though I make 100 trillion videos on Twitter and Instagram and on this podcast saying, please don't buy what I buy things for different reasons. I'm trying to learn. I'm playing a different game. Plus, I've spent years, and I mean years, on, you know, putting myself into a position to be able to afford to take risk. And so even though I say all those things, people kind of jump. And so I start doing more homework than ever. And during one of those, I call them bingers, because I get into something and I'm just in it. And I discovered this incredible project, Crypto Strikers, that I was really fascinated by. On OpenSea, they're called Wrapped Strikers. We'll go into that in a minute. And now I do the kind of homework where I reach out to the individuals behind it. And that is how I met my guest on today's podcast. And I asked Gianni to get on the show mainly to talk about 2017-18 NFT land. Because as you know, if you're listening, I think history tells you the future. And I think there's a lot to glean from the people that launched projects in 2017 and 18. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for a lot of you to learn about that era, even though it's 5 minutes ago, it's a billion years ago. I mean, I saw World of Women, a project I'm very into today, tweet that, you know, we launched our project a month ago. We want to thank everybody. I'm like, Jesus, that felt like 600 years ago. And so I'm really excited for this guest to be here. And so
Okay, I was wondering what the noise was because suddenly some background noise came up, but that's not me.
My friend, why don't you take the floor, tell everybody who you are, a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about how the project got kicked off.
Yeah, awesome. Super happy to be here, and kind of this has kind of caught us by surprise because, as you said, you know, Crypto Strikers is a 2018 project. We, my partner and I,
Why don't you tell everybody who you are? I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
Tell them your full name, your background a little bit, and then we'll get into Ben and all that too. Sorry.
Cool. Yeah, no problem. My name is Gianni Cettino. Born and raised in Montreal. Studied computer science. I was working at a fantasy sports company called Draft that ended up getting acquired in like early 2017. And I basically at that point like took some of the money from the exit and just like I wanted to, you know, just do some research on crypto. I put it into Ethereum, and Ethereum just like skyrocketed from there. And I was like, all right, you know, now like a large chunk of my net worth is in this thing. I got to learn about it. I actually got to do some research and figure out what it is, what's going on with this kind of this new world of smart contracts and programmable money. So I started doing a deep dive. You know, at the time, the big rush with IC.
Can I just say that's crazy how so he invested in Ethereum, maybe had some understanding, he hasn't said, but then it skyrockets and he's like, what do I do here? That's really interesting, like just fascinating.
ICOs, the trading ICOs back and forth. But really what caught my eye was late 2017 was CryptoKitties, which was the first, kind of mainstream NFT project. So
yeah, it was the first one. It was the first one I ever, I also bought ETH a couple years earlier. CryptoKitties was the first thing that I'd ever heard of. And I really want to, not regret, because I just don't have that gear in me. But there was 2 or 3 times, Gianni, where I was like, I'm going to sit down and really look at kitties today. And I really believe, had I done that, all this insanity that is taking over my life right now would have started back then. I do believe I'm a man of timing. I think my greatest strength is understanding when millions are going to do it, not hundreds of thousands. I think that I always think my best skill set in business is when tens of millions are going to do it versus tens of thousands. I probably would have figured out in 17, my intuition, I could be wrong about this, that it wasn't prime time yet. But fuck, I think I would have ended up with strikers and punks and kitties and some ETH, and who knows what the wins would have done. I'm clearly glad I'm at where I'm at, but man, I wish those 3 different times in 17, I feel, or 18, where I was like, let me dig into it this weekend or this holiday or tonight, and I never got around to it. So to back up your point, and I think for a lot of people listening here, CryptoKitties was probably the thing they heard.
Yeah, and that was, only a couple thousand people using it, but it was like the first kind of mainstream success. And like, I think it would have been really tough to extrapolate seeing NFTs then to where they are now, because that project had like a little, 1 month peak, couple thousand people using it, but it never fully crossed and captured the public's imagination like NFT projects did today. So, punks, they were giving them out for free. Like you never would have known that punks, the floor would be whatever the floor is today. It's like some crazy stuff. So I'm kicking myself too. I saw the CryptoPunks website when they were just free and you can claim your punk. And, now it's like, that was a pretty expensive mistake looking back. But yeah, now that was, so I saw CryptoKitties and I figured like, all right, I'm an engineer. I kind of want to build something. I come from a sports background, played sports my whole life. The logical kind of step also, given that it was a World Cup year that year, was making sports cards in the blockchain. So like the Panini sticker equivalent to, having your Panini book and collecting stickers. It's like, all right, how do we use this kind of new NFT concept, and have these cards on the blockchain where you can buy packs, trade them with people, sell them on a marketplace. And that was kind of the impetus for Crypto Strikers.
What happened? Like, tell me, like, obviously you're into it. You're digging deeper into it. You see kitties. You're like, let me go even deeper and get myself involved in it, which is a very me move. That's what literally you did what I did with VeFriends. I'm like, the way I learn is by doing. How did Ben come? How did your partner come along? Did you guys know each other? And I don't want to glance over the logical thing. Understand you're into sports, World Cup, but I want to go a little bit more into the details of like, what was different then, Gianni, versus what's going on now? Like, did how'd you get your designers? How'd you think about it? Obviously the ERC standards were different. Like, go a little nerdy for 5 minutes with me on this.
Yes, I can start with how I met Ben. We have a mutual friend, Jeremy Levine, who's like really big in the sports card world and the fantasy sports world. And I was bouncing ideas off him. And he, during one of our brainstorm sessions, he's like, sports cards on the blockchain. Like, it makes so much sense. This is like one of those crossover things that could bring mass adoption to NFTs and tokens. And he's like, I know a friend of mine, this guy, Ben, he's looking to work on a project. Like, you guys should totally sync up and just get the ball rolling, just fucking do it. And that was kind of how we met. And then we started brainstorming. We're like, look, these things have to look awesome. Like, people are not going to buy them if they don't look good. So we started searching for designers. We found 2 different designers, one in Montreal, one I believe in the Philippines, who made the 2 different editions of the cards. And we started brainstorming these concepts. All right, like, how is a pack sale going to look like? What's the trading marketplace? And then basically, like, at one point it was 100 days to the World Cup. Or like, all right, are we doing this or not? Like, we gotta, if we want to do it, like, there's a lot of engineering work, a lot of like PR work to do. So we just went heads down for 3 months, and basically on an early version of the ERC 721 standard, which is, if we get to the wrapped strikers later, I had to build a wrapper this year to make them compatible with OpenSea and other sites because it was such an older format. We just went heads down for basically 100 days straight and like launched on day 1 of the World Cup.
Wow.
Did you literally make it for day 1?
Yeah, I think like, I I didn't sleep for the last week of it, and like we were testing stuff out. Like the nerdy thing, if you want to get into the technicals of smart contracts.
Yeah.
Like once you ship them, you can't actually change
That's
the
it.
code. They're on the
Right.
blockchain forever.
Right. It's not like for everybody who gets like, I'm not a developer, but I've worked with them since 1996 closely. I understand what Johnny just said. Like, we used to launch things, like push out things for winelibrary.com, and it didn't work. And Eric Kastner or John Casamatis would go back into the code, fix something, and push it. And then I'd look at it. It'd be live for 2 hours. We used to, this was like old school 96 when we didn't even have like a dev server. So we'd be like developing live on the internet because there wasn't anybody really paying attention anyway. To your point, this happened with me with VeFriends. There was, we did a great job because we were going hard, but we even had one slight error, even though we looked at the data 7 trillion times, with the anchovy in my set. Was there any errors actually when you pushed it?
No, we actually did a bug bounty program, opened it up to the public, said, hey, if you want to look at our code and find a bug, we'll give you money. Someone found a small bug. I think we gave them 1 or 2 ETH at the time, which was, $1,000 or something. But it saved us probably, a large loss had that gone live.
True.
But the contract ran perfectly fine, never any hacks or anything. So that was a big success, but it was definitely stressful.
How big, how do you compare this era of NFT craze to that 18 when things were starting to pop off, that first wave?
Well, I can give you the numbers we did in our, our total sale of cards, I think was 50 ETH over the course of a month. And now projects basically hire a designer off Fiverr and they sell out $2 million worth of tokens. And we were one of the bigger projects. It was CryptoKitties and then us in terms of volume on the early OpenSea days. And we had done 50 ETH of sales basically. So it's microscopic compared to what you're seeing today.
And were you pumped? Wow, we really nailed it?
Yeah, we were super excited because people loved it. We had a really committed and involved community. People were in the Discord every day chatting, trading. So on that note, it was a success.
John, sorry to interrupt you. Tell everybody about the Discord culture back then versus today. Same thing, it was the main place where people communicated?
I think crypto projects had started using Discord. The first time I used Zoom and Discord was in that era, in the early 2018. When, I'm syncing up with designers for these projects and other crypto guys picking their...
As someone who I've been in gaming for a long time now, as those of you who've been watching me for a while know this. Discord, well, I remember being on it when it first came out. I'm talking within the first month, and now it's being used for crypto projects, but back before it was very niche, very gamer only, and now it's starting to spread towards tech sectors. It's really interesting to see.
Brain. But yeah, it was the place. It was either Telegram groups or Discord, and Discord's kind of better for managing, channels and stuff. So we set up a Discord, and during the games, during the World Cup, people would come in and live chat during the game. So it was definitely the Discord was one of our highlights of the community, but that was the place where early crypto projects kind of had their people kind of gather and chat.
Why did the NFT thing not gradually grow? Why did it kind of die off and then resurrect? What's your observation of 2019 or 2020, or did they not die off and they did gradually grow? What's your perception on that?
It fully died off. We tried to raise money off the back of Crypto Strikers. Look, we had this thing, we ran it, had a bit of success, and investors just didn't really care. And OpenSea was around, Super Rare was around, and I really respect those guys because they just grinded it out for 2 years in the full blown bear market where no one cared about NFTs. But I don't know. Honestly, the UX was really bad back then. It's still kind of bad for the average person to come in and
it's still hard.
I thought what would trigger mass adoption of NFTs would be the UX gets 10x better, and it hasn't. So I don't know what's changed, why.
And that's really interesting that he talks about that, because of course this is what we're talking about with VeVe. And I think ECOMI are very aware of the fact that in fact, what was it? Alfred Kahn, who of course is the head of ECOMI's licensing, in charge of obviously sorting out deals, I'm sure, brand deals, this, that, and the other. And he talks about how when he pitches the idea, he doesn't talk about NFTs. I mean, obviously, eventually it becomes obvious that it's an NFT thing, but he's calling them AFTs, which is action figure tokens, basically keeping it away from being, that NFT thing, because it still has that, that people are educating themselves more now, which is great, but it's still got that stigma, if you like. But VeVe is going to be, when the MTL comes through, And when, of course, you have the OMI to NFT and, vice versa, etc., as long as this app is easy to use, it's going to continuously build mass adoption. And that's really important.
Like resonate more today than they did 2 years ago. I don't know if it's the pandemic, people stuck at home, people looking for kind of ways to speculate on things. But for some reason, people just, love the NFTs today and like they didn't love them 2 years ago. But it's hard for me to put a finger on what changed.
Do you think investors struggled because you didn't have the rights? As this project is resurrected, I've been obviously very involved in Discord, and I'm a major collector of your project. Do you think, a lot of times people bring up to me, other serious collectors, like, hey, Gary, Sorare, I like Sorare better because they have the rights. Like some of the footballers are doing their own direct products. I didn't take a look yet under the hood, but Messi did his own thing recently here. Was that an issue? Did that lead to you to selling it? Because I know you and Ben sold the company. Like, what was the whole, I have a baseball card set that I'm in love with from 1951-52 called Burke Ross, that this entrepreneur just made baseball cards and put them into his cookies and didn't talk to anybody about it, just did it. I think that was a little more ridiculous because cards had been around for 70 years and there was call it a acceptable protocol and a way to do things. I think what you and Ben did, it was such early frontier that, I don't see them the same. I think that entrepreneur in the 50s was a little bit more aggressive. I think there was a little bit, even think about what you just said. We had one of the most successful projects that we did 50 ETH when ETH was $500, right? So I'm just curious from that perspective, do you feel that was the interpretation? And what has been the history of the fact that, you didn't do this screw fee for the players?
Yeah, I mean, the goal was always to kind of validate the concept and then, raise some money and then, do either partner with an existing, partner with an existing card maker. Like we had very high level talks with Panini back in the day. We had, we did talk to some other companies that were rights holders, and that was the path we were going to pursue. But the thing with, the leagues and we had talks with the association and stuff. They have really high like minimum guarantees. And there was no way in 2018, 2019, when no one's buying NFTs to like turn a profit. Like people just didn't care. Sure. So it's like we can guarantee, sign a contract, pay them $1 million a year in MGs, and like, what are we going to do? We're going to sell 25K worth of NFTs.
Yeah.
So that kind of, so that's why I respect like the Sorares of the world who just kind of toughed it out, grinded, and now they're in a really, really, really good place. I know you're an investor in Sorare, and like they're an awesome company, and we love them. But they were early Crypto Strikers users too. So like they kind of, yeah.
But so let's talk about the resurrection. So you're living life. You did this once. I'm sure, back in the day, you leave the space, I assume, because there wasn't anything going on. And that's at least what I can assume from what I've seen from afar. All of a sudden, this, NBA Top Shot hits in the fall of 2020. Punks starts having things happen in March of 2020, then June of 2020, then the fall of 2020. And then shit gets completely batshit crazy in early 2021. You got characters like me and Cuban on CNBC. You got people selling for $69 million. Top Shot punks go to this. And now we're in full-fledged hysteria 9 months in. When did it register for you that, oh shit, this thing that I was so prominently involved in is coming back?
Pretty early. So, I mean, I left the space in the sense that like my day project, what I work on for my day job is not crypto related, but I'm still like super close and following the space. A lot of my friends still work in crypto. So I was like well aware of what was happening in NFTs. I was one of the early, probably first 100 users in Top Shot. I was in their beta. So seeing all this, and then, January, February 2021, you see NFTs going crazy. You're like, man, I had an NFT project 3 years ago. How do we start bring this back? Like, how do I not miss this wave? So I was on vacation with my girlfriend. I wrote the wrapper contract just to get the cards working with the new exchanges. And it was just like a slow process. Explain.
So everybody, when you look for this, you got to go to OpenSea and go to Wrapped Strikers, not Crypto Strikers. When you search it, explain what wrapping means. I know it's a little nerdy, but in its most simplest form for everybody who's listening.
Yeah. So wrapping is when you basically take an asset and you lock it up in a smart contract, and the smart contract gives you a new asset that is compatible with a new protocol, a new website. So basically, it's just like a one-to-one trade where you're trading in the old thing, you're getting a new thing that works everywhere. So I think CryptoPunks, similar boat. They're not on ERC 721, so you can wrap your punks and have wrapped punks. There's a bunch of other projects that have done that, mostly old projects, just to make them compatible. You're swapping in the old NFT for a new NFT that works everywhere.
Now, Johnny, a lot of people ask me this: if Ethereum isn't destined to be the platform, will it be wrapping or something similar that makes people take NFTs that worked on Ethereum and make them work on a future blockchain that may be the winner of 2030?
Yeah, I think that'd be more like bridging is what people call that, where you're bridging assets from one blockchain to another. And like people talk about this multi-blockchain world where, you have Ethereum coexisting with Solana, coexisting with
Polkadot.
Polkadot, exactly. And you'd be able to port your assets from one to the other. I think Ethereum has like a really big head start. I don't want to pick any winners just yet, but like, yeah, if ever some other blockchain became dominant, it would involve bridging your assets from Ethereum over to that blockchain.
Do you consider Ethereum in a place? I mean, this is one man's opinion. None of us know. I talk to everybody about this. You can imagine, for me, I'm in a spot where VeFriends was so successful that I have a lot of ETH, and I have to be very thoughtful about diversification, things of that nature. In your own mind, do you ever think about Ethereum kind of similar to Yahoo, where it's like, okay, Yahoo, I mean, obviously it's different things, but we're talking from a brand standpoint. Yahoo kind of emerged as the winning search engine from those early days. And then it did take something that was so much stronger at it than Yahoo, aka Google, 5, 6, 7 years later to kind of take market share. Do you think something has to cut, given how far ahead Ethereum is?
That's a really good question. I would actually love to hear your takes on this. Personally, I was too young, honestly, to see. I mean, I know what he's talking about, but as far as living through it, as in like actually living through it, I didn't. Right? I was around, but I wasn't really looking at it. I wasn't analyzing. I wasn't thinking about it. But of course, Yahoo took quite an L, as the gamers would say, macro looking, as far as where Google is now, etc. Interesting stuff. Ethereum, obviously, as Gary and as we all know, is sort of, it's doing very well, and it's definitely the leading currently blockchain for this stuff. But how do you think this could change? And do you think this will change? Personally, I don't know enough about the competition, I don't think, but I wouldn't put it this way. If we were to go ahead 5-10 years from now, and he was telling me that if Ethereum was no longer, the one to use, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever, because things change.
And ETH is, do you think it's going to take something really special to kind of move that pendulum?
Yeah, I mean, it might be like a second mouse gets the cheese type situation where someone just comes and does it better. But like, as a developer and knowing a lot of people who are developers in the crypto space, like everyone's building, not everyone, but a good 90% of the people are building on Ethereum. So you have this like network effects of the developers. So it would have to be like a 10x experience, not for just the users, but also for the developers to switch over. Because like end of the day, the people building products on top of the platform, or like that's what's going to determine the winner. Is like you can have the best blockchain in the world.
And of course, that's what we're seeing with Immutable, right? Immutable is on Ethereum, right? It uses Ethereum technology. So,
world, if there's no experiences,
And what about for Web 2, like websites? I remember Wine Library was originally on ASP, then it was PHP, then it was Ruby on Rails, Python. Like, do you see similar? Like there, it seemed that the language of preference for developers tended to evolve.
The same thing might happen here. Like the language for Ethereum is actually not amazing. It's this thing called Solidity. It's like a Ethereum specific thing. Maybe one day a blockchain comes where you can just write JavaScript, which is what most people know, and you can build amazing apps on top of it. I haven't seen that yet. But yeah, all I know is that today most of the developer activity is on Ethereum. Whether that something much better comes along and that changes, I think it's going to take a couple of years. But for now, Ethereum to me is the clear front runner.
What resurrected? So going back, because I sidetracked you, but I like bouncing around. So now you're like, oh shit, this is all happening. I have this project that is my baby, of course, like any project. I'm going to write a wrapper for it so that the people that are sitting with it can show up on OpenSea. So I assume that's where you were going earlier. That's what you did. Tell me what happened from there.
Well, I mean, from there, it kind of just sat pretty quiet until you found it. To be honest, I was sitting in the Discord one day, and people were like, "Yo, who's this?"
Is that right? Is that right? There was no other like blip or two.
There was one small spike, I think, the Thursday before you found it. It kind of like we did 60 ETH in volume that day, and then it came back down. Had a little bit, people were rediscovering these old projects. We had a little spike, but then I think the Ether rocks came out, and like everyone rushed into the rocks. But then you started buying up, and I guess you did on your public wallet. People noticed, and then that just snowballed into madness. But
that's crazy.
It was basically you, to be honest.
That's mad.
And tell me the story. What was happening for you on your end? You're like sitting there, and
I saw messages in the Discord, and like someone was like, "Yo, who's buying up all these cards?" So I hop into the OpenSea activity, and I'm looking at the history. I'm like, "Man, this guy's like buying, 1 ETH here, 2 ETH, and like loading up." And then someone's like, "Oh, you don't know who that is? That's Garyvee, by the way." So I started doing some digging, started piecing together the mystery. And then I saw it.
I could just imagine what was actually going through his head when someone, well, for one, when he saw the sales, basically, what was going through. And then to know that, or to hear at least, it was Garyvee. If that was me, I would lose my mind. And I feel like he probably did too, my guess.
The same day Logan Paul was buying, I'm like, all right, something's up, something's got to give. And then, obviously you reached out to me and we started talking.
Yep.
But that was kind of like, someone noticed it in Discord. I did some digging, and I was like, all right, like what's going on here?
And so now what's been happening the last 2 weeks?
I mean, we just had these crazy days. Like, I think we were we were top 10 NFT projects for a couple of days. I think now we're like top 15. We did more volume than like Zed Run, Top Shot, So Rare for a couple of those days. You had, the DraftKings guy, Matt Kalish.
Yes.
You had you had Logan Paul, you had Steve Aoki, like seeing all these blue checks buying cards. It's been like really, really crazy. I think it's slowed down a bit from that peak, but I think people have kind of.
It's been interesting to watch the ebbs and flows. Like, it's funny, like going through patterns now. There's so many projects. It's like moments, and then like one thing happens, and everyone gets crazy again. It's been interesting. What's been fun for me is seeing a lot of old accounts wrapping in.
Yeah, we've been tracking that number, the wrapped percentage, basically. So, I mean, just more context for people who are not familiar with Crypto Strikers, there was 10,261 cards total that we minted in 2018. So we sold them for a month. Those cards. By
the way, you know what? I forgot that. Are you 10261?
Yeah.
You know what's wild about that? I know that. But the original, right?
Yeah. That was
VeFriends is 10255, which is wild because that's just very unusual numbers by today's world for us to be that close within each other. I like that. Keep going.
Well, the crazy thing is, like, all these projects today, they do 10,000 on purpose. They like, all right, like, we're creating the supply of 10,000. We just like sold all the cards we could. And once the World Cup ended, we just stopped selling cards, and it just landed at that number, which is like kind of the standard NFT number today is 10,000. We just got there by some weird accident. And I guess you guys probably got there by accident too, but yeah, that's close. No,
I was very affected by punks. That was the thing I most aped into in January. And so I was aiming towards that number. But I did characters with, 20, then 8, then 5, and just kind of the math worked out that way. And I was like, fine. I'm also like not that anal. I'm like, who cares? Like, if it ran a little over, it is what it is. So what's the state of the union right now? Like, what are you thinking about? Because you sold the company, right?
We sold parts of it. We sold some of the assets. So it was actually a company that had raised money to go do licensed NFTs. And then the bear market hit, and we kind of pivoted to other stuff, and mostly in the sports gaming, sports betting world. But they own certain assets stayed behind in the LLC. So, I mean, Ben and I are talking because obviously now we got all these eyeballs on the project. Like, what do we do with?
I do wonder as well, we're looking at the co-founder of Hot Streak Fantasy Sports, and one thing I'm noticing a lot is a lot more talk about gaming in NFTs. Of course, that's something that I'm personally very excited about. It's not something that I've seen anything that has truly. Obviously, there are the names like Axie Infinity, Illuvium, and stuff. But I think there are people who are bringing up really important points that I myself sort of relate to, I guess, which is about, you know, why are people playing NFT games? How can NFTs be in gaming? In fact, I've even been speaking with some major esports organizations about sort of their plays with NFTs and stuff, sort of tier one, if you like, esports orgs, which is really interesting because gamers are definitely going to inherently are digital savvy, generally digital natives. But it's going to be interesting to see an esports fantasy sort of NFT thing going on. I think that will take light once NFTs, because in the gaming scene, NFTs are still often seen in some negative light, I guess, because of, you know, the media attention on it to a certain extent. But I think, you know, as more people, including myself, talk about this stuff, you know, I've already explained NFT stuff to a lot of my own community, and I have a community of, you know, a couple 100,000 people realistically who follow me on different stuff. So it's always been interesting, and I'm excited to see what we can see from gaming. But anyway, I'm going to let them talk.
You know, what are the options? We haven't figured it out. We both have day jobs. It's kind of tough to manage this project, which we thought was in the past and what we're currently working on. But we're evaluating a few options. We definitely want to like be supportive and be helpful where we can for all the people who bought cards recently.
You guys have been great custodians in Discord, if nothing else. And to remind everybody who's listening, just because the way it worked back then, there is no royalties on this. Plus, they sold it. I don't know what, but there was no royalty contract, right, Gianni, on this?
No, we didn't turn those on OpenSea. Yeah,
Johnny, was that common in 17 and 18, the royalty component, or no?
I found an old agreement between OpenSea and us, because we were one of the first projects on OpenSea, and we had signed like a rev share where they got half the fees and they got it. You know, we split the fees half. But that was like for 2018.
Oh, the 2.5 back then.
Yeah, it lasted only that year. That contract's done. Now there's no royalties. Only OpenSea takes their cut. But like, yeah, the agreements were fully different back then.
Did you look at it the other day and be like, damn, I wish you take a look at, see if it's expired?
Yeah, I mean,
recalled.
I don't mind. Honestly, I just want people to have fun with it. Like, we're not in it to make money. We just always thought this was like a really, really cool thing that we were, you know, eventually if we had taken it full scale, we wanted to make money off it. But at the time, it was just an experiment, right? So
it was a way for you to like learn. Yeah, of course. Yeah. What about for you as a collector today? What projects are you into, if any?
I mean, I'm kicking myself. I saw the Bored Ape contract when only 64 apes had been minted, and I could have just gone and then minted a ton. I sent it to some friends. I'm like, I don't think this is going to sell out. And next thing I know, it's sold out. So I missed out on apes. I'm probably going to buy a punk soon. I think you have to own a punk. That's probably the one that's going to hold the value most long term.
It's funny you say that. Everybody I talk to right now who feels they're late, and they're like, man, Gary, I can't buy a punk now. It's a lot of money, first of all. But the ones who can afford it, I'm like, listen to me. You are the furthest thing from late. Like 98% of the world doesn't even know what it is. 99% of the world has not participated. Like, this is just starting. And I agree with you on punks for that reason.
Yeah, I think that's the one. You know, it'd be really stupid for me to be in NFTs to the extent that I am and not own a punk. So I got to figure that out and buy one pretty soon before the floor
I think you should.
Goes up another 10%.
Yeah, I think, exactly. But you are looking at projects constantly and things of that nature?
Yeah, I'm always like, you know, I've been kind of looking at that ON1 project that came out the other day. I try to
This is a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I'm getting really hungry, so I'm going to have to end the video here, but we're like 3 minutes away, and I appreciate Johnny Satino for being on Gary's audio experience podcast. Of course, the GOAT Garyvee himself. Some of you will like him, some of you won't, but personally, I'm a huge fan. He's helped me a lot as far as mentorship and understanding where I'm going with both my life and business choices. So with that being said, hopefully this video was interesting and helpful to you. If it was, a like so much appreciated. Going to continue trying to make NFT videos, continue trying to make videos on this channel as I took a bit of a break, but you know, we're trying to get back to it. So that being said, thanks for watching. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.